Very good to speak to you again. So, like I was just telling them, this is like a unmoderated debate. So, you're just blessing us with your presence to speak to Pepe,
Yeah,
and
we're
we're all
just
going to listen.
chilling.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. So, like I was telling you guys, Vaush is streaming right now, so you'll find his stream pinned in the audience chat if you'd like to see him while he's speaking. He's very beautiful, so I suggest you do that. Pepe is one of the most prominent right wingers on the server, alt right, libertarian quote unquote types on the server. So you know, if you guys don't know who Pepe is, you're just not spending enough time on the server.
I thought Pepe was the
And
frog.
he's not a frog, unfortunately.
Oh, I thought it was a
Yeah,
frog.
I had my hopes up, and he got on cam, and he's actually like an Italian dude or something. It's
Fuck.
really
Ah,
sad.
No,
that fucking
I'm
sucks.
actually French. I'm actually French,
That's
so
not better. It's
technically.
not really an
Okay, well, I'll
improvement.
leave you to it. And I don't know if you guys had a topic or whatever, but yeah,
Wait, yeah,
I'll
then
hop
he
right
is
up.
a frog. Wait.
Exactly.
Oh, there we go. Okay. How you doing? What's up?
Good. How are you? So I was listening to you just a little bit before the stream. So a couple of things. So you have a degree in sociology, right?
Yeah.
All right, we have something in common there. Probably got mine before you, a little bit older, but and you're pro-gun.
Yeah.
Okay, right on. Sweet. So
Well, if you're
right.
French, do you
So-
own any guns, or do you sort of abstractly pro-gun? I don't know what the gun laws are in French. Or
oh no, I'm not. I'm sorry. No, my family's French. I'm an American. I was born here.
Well, that's the whole point of America, right? You shed your old ancestry because it's a big melting pot. So to me, you are but an American.
I am. Yep. So yeah. All right. So I remember last time we had talked a little bit about more like freedom of association. That was kind of where when it comes to a lot of the whole like diversity is our strength and all of that is where I kind of that could be true to some extent, right? But I remember giving like the hypothetical regarding if there was I use Belarus, but I'll just use a hypothetical. But let's say it's all racially, ethnically, religiously, all pure, quote unquote pure. They're all the same. And I had mentioned, well, if they want to remain homogenous, and just by not allowing immigration, so there'd be no expelling or genociding or any of that stuff. I couldn't really see where it would be morally wrong unless there was like a humanitarian crisis where they, were maybe refusing to take in people who obviously would suffer if they didn't come in. But if I recall correctly, you kind of had a problem with that, unless you felt like you would have to have more valid reason besides just being from a different country or of a different race.
Yeah, well, one of the initial problems is that there's really no such thing as an ethno-state that doesn't discriminate or genocide or persecute. There is no such thing as a culturally homogenous country. Every country on Earth and every country that has ever existed has included cultural and social schisms. And there are always ethnic schisms as well, because ethnicity is sort of an arbitrary boundary that you can subdivide as many times as you want. A culture that is obsessed with maintaining purity will find impurities within itself. So there's really no reason at promoting that at all, especially when there's no reason for the so-called purity. There is no such thing as purity on a social level. It's a completely made-up concept. There are millions of individuals with their own ideas. There will always be disagreements and crime and what have you. The pursuit of purity for its own sake usually means a fixation on adjacent characteristics that do very little to predict well-being within a country. There are countries all around the world that are very ethnically diverse, that have relatively low rates of criminality and high rates of economic productivity. And there are countries that are relatively ethnically homogenous, that do not and do not. It has far more to do with material conditions than any idea of like national purity. So the discrimination necessarily entails, I think, persecution. But even besides that, I just think people should have the right to travel where they want. I don't think you should be able to erect boundaries to keep people from visiting our lovely planet just because some people have a weird, arbitrary idea that somehow it's better to maintain racial purity within a culture.
Okay, and I will agree with you to the extent that obviously there are many differences. Other there are definitely many ways in which we can otherize fellow citizens, even if we are quote unquote homogenous in terms of race, ethnicity, religion, and so forth. Um, there's no denying that. I do, even though I do think that race and ethnicity and religion are definitely, we've seen throughout history, are going to be a source of tension. I obviously there are other things, like obviously when it comes to class struggle or just your political beliefs. Um, but I guess, and by the way, I'm not against people traveling to countries, living there. It's, I just still, it's one of those things where, okay, professional sports teams, that's an in group, right? And they're selective. So are beauty pageants. So are pretty much anything in life. I mean, regarding where you work, the friends that you have, your family. And if I think of like something like a nation where you have a group of people where their ancestors had built that nation, or and that culture, anywhere from hundreds, thousand years, doesn't matter, and for their for their their future offspring to inherit it. I mean, I can't.
But
If those
all
people
of
wish
this,
to remain homogenous.
so
Mhm.
you're already relying on, like, let's be fair, like totally immaterial bullshit. Just because a people group built something thousands of years ago does not mean they get to decide the race of people who use it in the future. Additionally, sports teams and beauty pageants are things you elect into. There are prerequisites because they're meant to delineate certain characteristics for various reasons, beauty or athletic ability. A nation just refers to a geopolitical bloc that has, the right to commit violence within a given area. You're just born there. It's not something you choose to go into. Because no choice is made, where you were born there, it is something which I give very little consideration when it comes to like the need for in or out group designation. Can we focus on like stuff that actually matters though? Like this is what the problem that I have is when I have this conversation, it's always like, well, the ancestors built. I don't give a like. Why would I? They're dead. I will be dead one day. Well, I would
Mhm.
rather like what makes people's lives better, like what in an empirical sense, like all I care about is the living and those who are to live in the future. How do we make their lives better? And I've never seen any evidence that like restricting the race of people who can enter your country actually does that.
Okay, but I also can't. I mean, is there evidence that allowing different races actually is going to improve in every situation the material conditions
I
and,
don't have to. The
a homogenous country?
the default is towards freedom. People should be able to do what they want unless it's proven that it hurts other people. We take the same attitude towards law. A person doesn't need to prove that something should be legal. The state needs to prove why it should be illegal. That's how we go by ethics as well. So whether or not people of different races entering a country makes it better is immaterial to me. The question is whether or not them entering makes it worse. Um, if there's a perfectly neutral outcome to their entrance, then I would still say you have a net positive because people have been allowed to act freely. That's a positive thing.
Okay, but wouldn't you be taking away the freedom for a group of individuals? And of course, I'm talking about a country in this hypothetical, the, their right to, or I should say, their freedom, their freedom of association,
No.
not
No,
only like also to choose their how.
you dishonor your ancestors when you use that cowardly euphemism. You are not restricting others' freedoms by exercising your own. You do not have a freedom to dictate the freedoms of others. That's ridiculous. If that's the case, you could say that, like, you're anti freedom by not wanting children to be kidnapped because you're removing the freedom of the child kidnapper. Like, it's ridiculous. We're talking about the rights people actually have. You already have a right to free association. Because I am not you, I support a world in which you have the right to move literally anywhere you want. You don't get to decide where other people move. I think this is a fair system.
Um, sure, and by the way, the approach I'm coming at this from is not from necessarily an ethno-nationalist point of view, but this is a freedom of association type of view,
Stop,
which I
please
do.
stop doing that. Stop. You're not talking about freedom. You're talking about restricting the freedom of others to live where they want. You already have freedom of association. You can live anywhere you want. What you're talking about is justifying taking away freedom of association from other people. You are not defending freedom here. Your position is the anti-free position. You are the authoritarian. I am arguing against your proposed authoritarian policy.
Oh, I absolutely don't believe it's authoritarian because we're not stripping the rights away of anybody.
You're stripping away the right for those people to enter and live in the country that you're prescribing these policies for. That is, by definition, a freedom that you are removing from them, unambiguously through state power. And you're talking about other people's freedoms. You already have the freedom.
Okay, but if it's, let's just say, the overwhelming, let's just say 100% of the people that live in this nation don't want somebody else coming into their nation, or people that are different from them coming in their nation, you're then violating their freedom because they can't be left alone and they don't have a democratic voice. You're basically saying, no, that's wrong.
If 100% of people in a country believe that it's acceptable to take away the right to life for, say, Jewish people, do you think then keeping them from doing so would be a violation of their freedoms, or are you simply protecting the freedom of the Jewish people?
What does Jews have to do with this?
It's a simple analogy. Just because a democracy wants to take the rights away from a minority group does not mean that you're removing freedom from the majority when you deny them from doing so. A democracy is founded upon majority rule with minority protections, and one of those protections involve basic human freedoms. In this case, we're talking about the right to immigrate, the right for people of different races to live where they want. That's a basic human freedom. Even if we live in a democracy where the majority of people want to take that freedom away, I don't give a shit. I assume the majority of the people in Saudi Arabia think that gay people deserve the death penalty. I continue to not give a shit. Democracy isn't the be-all, end-all. If that was the case, how could we condemn Nazi Germany for committing to the Holocaust when they were genuinely anti-Semitic, or Imperial Japan for what they did in China or Manchuria? It's silly. Just because a country wants to do something doesn't mean that thing is good or that you're an authoritarian for keeping them from doing so.
Yes, and so there is a very specific reason why I use the example of a homogenous, at least ethnically, racially, and religiously, where 100% of the people would have said, hey, we just want this country for ourselves. Now, that's going to be a lot different from Nazi Germany, for example, or China, where you have minorities that are living within your country, right?
There are minorities within every country.
Tyranny of the majority. Yes, but in this hypothetical, there isn't.
Wait, it is not tyranny of the majority to prevent the majority from discriminating against the minority. That is the opposite of the tyranny of the majority. You're defending the tyranny of the majority position by saying
No, because there's no minority in this country. No, because I gave a hypothetical.
It's not just within the country. You don't get to violate the rights of people outside the country either. You know, in the United States, you can't just travel 1 foot over the Mexican border and then shoot a Mexican, then walk back over. When I talk about ethical protections, I'm not just referring to citizens of the country. I'm talking about everyone.
Sure, but in my hypothetical, I also mentioned that granted that there were no humanitarian crises where they had to take in refugees, in other words, people who needed to come in, I'm also leaving that out. So I'm trying to make it so that I'm basically trying to give an example that is unrealistic and it's hypothetical, where there are no refugees or people that are going to be hurt by not being allowed to come into your country. They're just not allowed in.
That is already a hurt because you are denying them a freedom arbitrarily. It doesn't matter whether or not there's a refugee crisis. You are already denying them their freedom to live within your country. For no reason, by the way. There's a reason why you're not actually trying to talk about the harm that would be done if they could live in the country, is because there's no way of demonstrating it. We're locked entirely in a hypothetical for the sake of hypotheticals, you know, an abstract for the sake of abstraction. What harm would be done if people of different races could enter the country? Well, let's not focus on that because the answer is none. You know, let's talk about some sort of hypothetical, frictionless, perfectly spherical country of one.
Do you want to talk about do you want to talk about what would happen if they were allowed to enter the country and what I would think should happen?
I live in the United States already. I already know what happens when people of different ethnic groups enter a country. We don't need to use abstractions. We can go off real world data.
Yeah, we can do that when it comes to people that move in that are, I can't say racially different because we're not a racially homogenous country, but I would think that whoever you are, if you're allowed into the country, okay, you are afforded the same rights and the same protections as anybody else, native born or not. And I 100% against any kind of abuse of these people or discrimination against these people.
You support discriminating against their right to live in the country.
No, oh no, I that was the hypothetical. I don't. When it comes to an ethno-state like the United States, I don't. That's kind of retarded. I wouldn't advocate for that.
But there's no reason for it anywhere.
I mean, I don't know. I think
Isn't
it's more
it
of
odd
a
to have
value
such a
judgment.
strong conviction towards an idea for which you have so little supporting evidence? Why care at all if this is the degree to which you care? This, well, maybe perhaps, like, you sound like an engineering student deliberating over different type of valve inputs to use in a water purification plant, you know? Well, this one has 0.02% more efficiency when talking about water above this temperature. Like, we're talking about ethnostates here. Surely you have some deep conviction that you understand would be retarded if you spoke it aloud. Like, I know in your head there's plenty of racist bullshit bubbling. You just know it'd be bad to air it. But that's what actually motivates your belief here, right?
Sure. Oh yeah, there's definitely racist beliefs that I have.
Well, then why? Well, I know, like, obviously it's not a good idea to share those with me, but, like, that's just because they're dumb. You could just stop
No,
believing
I'll
those
share.
and be
I'll share
smart.
them with you if you.
You could if you could evolve, you know, and not think those things if you wanted to, and that would sort of improve the whole, you know.
Well, okay, but the reason I'm using I was using the hypothetical regarding freedom of association is because I I'm without any preconceived biases that I have. Okay, I'm trying to see just how much you would judge a country that is willing to exclude other people. When I can limit every other variable where they're not hurting people. But of course, you said that, well, by not letting them in, they're hurting them. All right,
Yes,
fair.
I have anarchist political tendencies. You know, we're talking about the right for a state to deny people the right to live on a place on our beautiful limited earth because of their skin tone or ethnic background. I'm ideologically opposed to you on every level before you even include the consequences of the actions. My opposition to this is axiomatic.
Okay. And so I'm willing to bet. Like I said, I haven't really listened to you before. I know you're a big deal on the internet. So.
Oh, not at all.
All right. So. All right. So I'm willing to bet because it's my understanding that for years you've been doing debates. You're probably a lot more rhetorically gifted and better at debating than me. I'm not even a good debater. But yeah, I'm guessing you've talked to a lot of like alt-right and far-right people, correct?
I've had this conversation plenty of times, but I'm always interested in having it again. Yes, I'm probably more rhetorically skilled than you, but I try not to let that give me the opportunity to bowl over people. I'll address your arguments directly. The problem is, I just don't think it's possible for you to have any good ones. There are a couple of directions you can take this. You can talk about the actual direct effect of ethnic integration, at which point I can point out that when we talk about these studies pertaining to ethnic integration, we're usually not actually talking about ethnic differences. We're talking about specific ethnic differences. Or to put it another way, if you go into New York City, there are plenty of ethnicities, but only some distinct ethnic conflicts, usually racial ones. And those racial conflicts are usually alleviated over time. The more time different racial and ethnic groups spend together, the more likely it is they eventually get along. To the point where it's more likely that people will be in favor of integration if they actually live around the people who they're referring to when we think of integration. So given enough time, diversity and integration literally makes people more progressive, which is kind of like a political shorthand for the idea that people want to be around people who are different from them. And who wouldn't? It makes life more interesting. You can talk about the specific rates of criminality or different levels of sociological attainment for different ethnic and racial groups, but those have more to do with class structures than anything else, which is why you can pretty easily point to the disparaging sort of the different trajectories that different ethnic groups have taken in America since they eventually, originally came here. You have the Irish and the Italians, for example, who were originally considered to be like pale-skinned black people in terms of social attainment, to the point where they were pushed into the same ghettos. But then eventually, after, let's say, a collection of difficult and disparaging social circumstances, they were allowed to ascend into kind of broader white hegemony, whereas black people weren't. And redlining kind of sealed the deal on which neighborhoods black people were locked into, where white and Italian people got to participate in white flight. And then with the death of American manufacturing, you have these essential ghetto towns like Detroit and Chicago and the Rust Belt and what have you, which guarantees that the only real income there is going to be through crime and drug distribution. So most of the stuff that people use to justify their racism can be easily explained away with a basic understanding of socioeconomics. But you have a degree in sociology, to which point I have to ask you, what are you doing? What could motivate these beliefs of yours other than an sort of a willing rejection of the things that you took an education on? What are you doing with that degree of yours?
Oh, well, I would say, I worked, I don't want to dox myself, but yeah, I worked in social work for a while, and I won't get into it. But I do, and a lot of the right-wing people here are going to probably cringe when they hear this, but when it comes to intersectionality, I do believe that that is something that is real. For example, I'm not, I wouldn't say that I'm blindly racist, but when I was a college student, I did bite my lip pretty much, probably at least half the time, through my classes, because I thought a lot of it was bullshit. But yeah, but going back to the Italian and Irish thing, now I get it. So you had a bunch of people that would come here. And of course, they were allowed to come here because they were of European descent. I mean, the first Immigration Act passed during the first Congress in I believe it was like 1795. It specifically stated that like free white men of good moral character or whatever from Europe could come here. And so they were allowed to come here. And, an Irish and an Italian or an Irish and an Englishman, they could marry. Miscegenation laws, I believe there were a couple states that had those kinds of laws, but for the most part, they could marry. But they were considered white. Now, they were considered a low-tier shit class white group, for lack of a better term. But yeah, and they lived in ghettos. They had problems. I think you and I will both agree that not only being poor, but urban poor, especially in highly populated areas, that's generally associated with a lot of crime. And the Irish and the Italians were examples of that. And they lived in their ghettos. But I wouldn't. I don't know. I think it's kind of a weak argument to try to compare a group that is phenotypically and culturally far more similar to the founding stock, to people from other parts of the world. I think it would be harder for them to assimilate, mainly because of those phenotypical differences. If you're black and you have a child with a white woman or a white man, I mean, chances are it's not going to exactly look white.
Of what relevance is this when we talk about the fundamental ethics concerning integration and immigration? Yes, it's true. Black people tend to look more black than white people. I've noticed that when looking at them. Of what relevance is this?
Oh, well, the relevance is that people, for whatever reason, okay, they're tribal, and they will otherize each other based on phenotypical differences. And I don't know. We've been in the United States. Black people have been in the United States for over 400 years. Native Americans, obviously, longer than that. I wouldn't say race relations have ever been great between all of us. And yet, at the same time, I think it's a good idea to invite a flood of third worlders into our countries with the hope that these third worlders can keep afloat a first world nation, as if that's ever been done before.
Let's calm down, let's calm down for a moment, because you've made a couple of claims. First of all, It's true we've never had great racial relations here in the United States, though right now they're certainly better than they have been in the past. But the fact that people like you have been racist is not an argument in favor of the racism. I hope you know that. Your answer right there was essentially just, well, what are you going to do, right? Well, I think we can do some stuff, you know, we can culturally push back against racism. We got rid of slavery and the Jim Crow laws. Clearly, that history is capable of pushing us in some direction. Um, Also, again, integration tends to make people more progressive. Uh, Big cities tend to be much more socially progressive, and those are the areas where white and black people are most likely to interact with each other. Um, Repeatedly studies show this. It's not actually like being around people who are different from you that makes you racist. It's the opposite. Being away from them and hearing retarded stories or 4chan green text posts, that's what tends to make people racist. You have these white boys in the suburbs who are 16 years old who will not touch a woman for 30 years to come, who are reading stories about how black people are all hoodlum thugs or whatever, and they clutch their heart and gasp at the thought of Western civilization falling apart as they fail to personally contribute to white birth rates or do anything with their lives. No, in reality, it is absence from integration, which tends to make people more opposed to integration, which is another one of the reasons why I oppose ethno-states, by the way. Racism is cumulative, you know? It tends to compound upon itself. And at the end there, you said something or another about third worlders. I don't really know what you're going on about when you say third worlders. You're describing a pretty wide swath of the world. Do you mean the Nigerian doctors or the Indian tech experts, the Cuban doctors? Or do you mean the Hispanics who prop up our entire agricultural industry? Which specific group of third worlders do you take issue with? Because our economy has never been this large, and it has never produced this much wealth. And well, I was about to say all of American history, but all of world history, huh? We're quite powerful. There are problems with our economy, but I think that has more to do with capitalism than it does the actual, preponderance of these industries. So what's the issue here? Why? What's wrong?
For sure. So I'll go on to say that, first of all, I grew up and I still live in the Southwest. Like, I wouldn't say there was much in the way of diversity. I would say it's just like Mexican and white. But with that being said, I don't have a problem with people on a personal level whatsoever, or even diversity. I mean, I think even you would agree, diversity is kind of cool. You can go to different parts of town. You can go to different types of restaurants. You can meet different types of people who have different cultures. It's exciting, sure. But I mean, do I think it's healthy on a national level? No. Now, going to the question.
Wait. Where is it unhealthy? This is what I mean. Like, where is it unhealthy? Because American racists have been complaining about the national stock being diluted since the first wave of Germans and Polish people came in 250 years ago. And today we're the world superpower. Like, people keep predicting, like, oh, these deviances from the founding stock will be our downfall, and they keep not being that, and we keep getting stronger, you know? And they have all these stories like, oh, well, the Romans fell because of this. No, they didn't. The Romans fell for a billion reasons. It had nothing to do with diversity. Oh, the Persian Empire fell because, no, it's very complicated, you know? But they try to frame it like, well, the moment the Roman and Persian empires were made not ethnically homogenous, from day one, their downfall was sealed hundreds or thousands of years from then. It's like, okay, so if you let brown people in, the empire will collapse 1,500 years from now. Okay, gotcha. Like, where's the harm? What's happening?
Sure, I can answer that. What was the question that you asked before that?
Like, where is the harm being done to our country with, like, the integration of these non-founding stock types?
Well, I would say they're not really. It depends. I mean, some of them are integrating, but they generally do tend to vote along racial lines and have an inference where they're going to advocate for their people's needs. I mean, which is natural to me. I'm not blaming them for it. That's almost some.
So people along different racial groups tend to have voting tendencies. That does make sense considering the Republican Party has made racism one of its, like, kind of prominent electoral features. I don't see what the issue is there, though. Why is that? Isn't that the point of a democracy? Like, people vote in their best interest?
Well, why would you want people to come in that would vote against your best interest?
because to believe that would be fundamentally anti-democratic. You can't restrict immigration because you don't like the way the immigrants are voting because you're racist. The immigrants are voting against you
Sure, you
because you're
can.
no, you can't. That's self-defeating. Like, I can't believe the people that we're racist against keep voting us out of office. You know, it must be a problem with immigration. No, that's just how democracy works. I'm not listen, okay? I'm not going to subvert immigration and democracy so you get to keep your racism, okay? Like, let's undo these like Enlightenment era institutions so you can continue to win elections while hating non-white people. Like, no, I'll preserve those institutions. You just get to lose elections. What's wrong with that?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. But you did mention something quite interesting. So you brought up Nigerian doctors earlier. You brought up, Indian engineers. I'm just going to go off stereotypes, and the reason they're stereotypes is because they're often true, and I think you know that. And so you're talking about cream of the crop, brain drain immigrants. I mean, I think we can all agree that it doesn't matter what race, what fucking country you come from. If you get the most um, diligent, hardworking, and industrious people from any given country, they're going to outperform anywhere they go in the world. And so that's what you're getting in the United States. And yes, I personally don't have a problem with the Indians or Nigerians that have come here. I would say I have more of a problem with the people that have been coming across our southern border.
What's wrong with them?
Rather unchecked, or rather, well, there's a lot of problems with them. I mean, number one, they're largely low-skilled, uneducated, and I'm not even blaming them for that. I mean, these people come from dire circumstances where that wasn't a choice they had, right? Does it make them bad people?
Oh, sure, but who cares? Our economy needs low-skilled labor. We benefit from it. If it weren't for that, then, you know, it wouldn't be the undocumented immigrants who are propping up the entire agricultural belt along the southern border and through California. Now, obviously, they're filling sort of an economic niche. I would prefer they were all documented, of course, because I think they should be getting paid over the table and at full wages, you know, and then double whatever those full wages are, sure. But we obviously, need them here. And even if we didn't need them, I still think they have a right to be here. Obviously, if there were no jobs at all for them, if we had no niche to fill with their labor, then they would just come here and sort of not have any jobs and just kind of be a drain on the economy. But that's not the world we live in. The world we live in is one in which we do have need of their labor. We need to grow. Our domestic birth rates are simply not high enough. It's smart to benefit from immigration.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Bracero programs that we had here. They were seasonal workers. They tended to get paid well. I would actually think that they should get paid. They should be able to come here and work. They should have wages that are legally protected. In other words, they can't lowball them because they're documented, because they're at least to work here seasonally. And I don't even have unionizing and getting fucking healthcare. I don't care about that kind of shit. I'm against the exploitation of foreign workers. But at the end of the day, like, a lot of these people, they send a large amount of remittances, despite how shitty they're paid, back to Mexico. A lot of them probably would want to live there. But
sure, they send
don't you think that, like, there should be something more? I would think just giving them seasonal working permits, and I guess if it works out, and they seem like they're good people, they've been here for years, not causing problems, and they want to apply for citizenship, I'm fine with that. But just letting the fact that we have so many undocumented people here, and that there's no real effort to try to curtail that, I think that's just like a real problem. And even if they were all white, okay, I would have a real problem with that.
But why? What's the issue? I agree they should be documented, and there is a protracted effort to keep them from entering. Our Border Patrol guards are exceedingly cruel to them when they get the chance to be, and we do not have the best legal processes for allowing them. We weren't even allowing them their international right to declare asylum for several years under Trump, and even under Biden, it's still not exactly great. So we certainly are trying to keep them from coming in. But I asked them what I would ask you. Why? Let them come in. Let them be citizens. Fine, enter. At the very least, give them the ability to stay here legally, be documented immigrants.
Okay, so with illegal immigrants, obviously, I mean, those are the gotaways that we couldn't control for. But I think even you are reasonable enough to agree that there are limits, right?
There are limits, but we haven't met them. This would be a worthwhile conversation to have if we were genuinely buckling under the weight of immigration. But as of this moment, immigration from the southern border, even undocumented immigration, helps our economy, you know? It's like imagine you're eating at a sumptuous buffet and you're still quite hungry and you're thinking, if I keep eating for the next few days nonstop, I will eventually explode. Well, maybe, but that's not going to stop you from eating right now. Right now, we are still hungry for immigration. There's no reason for us not to keep it up. And if it becomes economically damaging in the future, like sincerely economically damaging, then I think that economic practices for immigration restriction are acceptable, not race-based ones. Now, there will be a sort of conjunction of race and economic-based immigration restrictions at the moment because of how many poor immigrants we get from our southern border. But I would consider that kind of an unfortunate correlation. It wouldn't be a desire to keep Mexicans out of the country. It would just be a desire to curtail immigration, and we just happen to get a lot of it from the southern border. That's in the future. Right now, I say let them all come.
Okay, so I'll I'm going to slightly shift the topic. So I'm sure you've heard of the term the Great Replacement, which is it was the title of a book by Rene Camus. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a gay left-wing Frenchman, and it was more him talking about like what he saw were like the pitfalls of globalism, and even how it drew in large amounts of immigration into France. And what he kind of saw was like what he felt like the degradation and decaying of French culture, in the sense that everything was kind of starting to become less unique. Everything seemed like cookie cutter, like what you would see in America, for example. And then, of course, you would see the immigration, and you saw like the erosion of what he considered traditional French culture, architecture,
So
all kinds of things.
you're conflating two things. There is a homogeneity of culture which is produced by capitalism. I will agree with that. But that has more to do with globalism in the sort of leftist economic sense. The idea of shiftless capital enforcing the same basic policies around the world because corporations are necessarily self-interested and will therefore gravitate towards systems that are most profitable for them. I agree that this is a problem, and I think things should be done to prevent stuff like that from happening. What you're referring to, though, is race and ethnicity, which is where this all turns horseshit. Plenty of people move to a country, and they, they appreciate its rich culture, and they add to it themselves. This does not make everything more the same. It's particularly funny because, like, Mexico has a pretty fucking rich culture, and it contributes significantly to the cultural diversity and uniqueness of Southern America in ways that weren't present before. Like, you'll have parts of Texas that before were just highway towns, where you'd have like 17 lane stroads blocking off like 7-Elevens and gas stations. And then Mexicans come in to destroy the local culture. What local culture? Capitalism? No. Race has nothing to do with this. If we're trying to protect local culture, then what we should actually want to do is promote immigration, because the most diverse and unique and interesting local culture is actually facilitated by the free movement of peoples. Art and culture have always been a product of freedom. And if you try to restrict freedom with your, say, weird, arbitrary culture must be kept this, that, or the other, this is what actually leads to cultural decay.
Okay, so I can use Mexico, for example, somewhere I've been to a lot. And by the way, like as somebody who's grown up in the Southwest, like it's always had a somewhat significant Mexican or Mexican American presence. But okay, so in Mexico, if I was to go there, anywhere, and I'm talking about like a place that's not a tourist destination, and I was to see it as Anglo-sized or American-sized, whatever the fuck you want to call it, like I would say like it sucks. Like this isn't Mexico. This is lame. Like I would consider that like kind of a degradation of their culture.
Who cares? The people who live there have a right to shape the community. Well, who cares about what you care about? The people who live there have a right to shape the communities that they live in. This is how culture develops and evolves. Every cultural tendency that you enjoy today was at one time the degenerate anarchic tradition of yesteryear, okay? With the possible exception of maybe neoclassicism, in which case you would have to go back thousands of years to find the times where this was considered architecturally daring. Basically, everything we know and love at one point was considered like degenerate art. You know, even Mozart was considered degenerate. Like Baroque art back in the day was considered like the poor man's classical. This idea that you can like freeze the world, lock out culture, and keep everything the way that it is, it's foolish, and it has never worked ever at any point in human history. You know, even the neo-Nazis in their effort to purge Nazi Germany of degenerate culture, the Museum of Degenerate Art was remarkably popular, and people would try to find bootlegs of the old books and music and so on that the government would execute people for distributing. People just don't want to live in this frozen culture world because it's not real. It doesn't exist. It's an arbitrary, authoritarian enforcement made by insecure people who think they can freeze time right when they're most comfortable. But time will make dust of all of us. We have to accept that if we want to live in society.
Yeah, well, first of all, we agree. Obviously, culture changes with time. That's not an argument I'm making. All of this shit that you said about Nazi Germany, I'm not talking about whatever that crazy shit was. It's not me. But I would say that if Mexicans, for example, they thought it was like, why are these Americans moving here, speaking English, dressing like that, acting like that? They're fucking obnoxious. They don't fit in. They're so goddamn annoying. I would say like, yeah, right on. Like it's your fucking country. This is your neighborhood, your city, whatever. And you have absolutely. And if you want to make them feel unwelcome because of their unsavory characteristics, that's your right. Like, why not?
Why not what? If you live in a neighborhood and other people move into that neighborhood and you find them personally obnoxious, you are free to cry about it. If they break the law, you can petition them through those means. But what are we to do? You know, this what, Karen culture? You want to call the police every time you see what, low sagging pants? What am I to think of this? What argument is this?
I'm talking about Mexicans. No, I'm talking about like Mexicans. If Americans moved to, let's say, like in the state of Sonora, right south of me, right?
Oh, wait, I don't care. Wait, I don't care whether they're doing it or are doing it. I think that white people have a right to move to Mexico and make Mexico more like where they live. And I think that Mexicans have a right to move to America and make those parts of America more like their parts of Mexico. It is a wonderful thing.
So you think that despite how unhappy the residents of this Mexico, despite how they feel that they can just go down there and just be obnoxious Americans and do whatever they want, and as long as they're not harming.
Yes, obviously, of course. What, you think that I would suddenly revert to ethnic protectionism because we're talking about another country? You can complain about the obnoxious American tourists if you want. Sure, fine, go for it. But of course I think Americans have a right to move down to Mexico. And if we want to bring with us our Big Macs, then this is our right. Sure. This is how culture changes. Obviously, this isn't happening very much at the moment because America is a desirable place to live when compared to Mexico, at least most parts of Mexico. But if that were to be the case, then sure, fine, go for it. Yeah, people are always going to be complaining about some new thing or this, that, or the other. You know, people are tribalist, but just because people are tribalist it doesn't mean we have to like politically enable those instincts, right? Like, there are plenty of things that humans have a predilection towards that we don't enable through legality. Should we make rape legal just because Neanderthals didn't have a concept of consent? No, of course not. We do better than we would otherwise do. We improve upon the systems. So what? Because I suppose in your case, you once met an annoying Mexican, now we create an ethno-state? No, let people live where they want. You can freely associate and move to whatever neighborhood you want. You can, I'm sure, in this country, find a neighborhood where you're happy with your, you know, the ethnic and cultural predilections of your neighbors.
Sure, no. I mean, I wouldn't, obviously not one person, but I mean, I do think that it was in the LA Times, and I forget who else picked it up. I believe the New York Post. There's kind of a little campaign going on in Mexico City with the onslaught of digital nomads that work from wherever that moved into Mexico City. And of course, you know, there's problems that they can bring. I won't get into it, but
Sure, they
a lot of the
complain.
Mexicans are yeah, and the Mexicans are complaining. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't consider that racist. I don't consider that any of that shit. They probably don't like them for the same reason that a lot of Montanans in like Bozeman, Montana, which you had an explosion of people from coastal states that have moved in there that are politically different from them, have different values that
So you're mixing
the
stuff.
locals don't really like.
You're mixing stuff up right now. One of the issues with the people who are moving to Mexico is they're economic in nature. America, with our incredible wealth, we can survive the burden of inconvenient economic realities, which are always going to exist when it comes to any kind of social or demographic movements, positive or negative. Whereas in Mexico City, some of the concern is that you have these essentially very wealthy people from America who are coming in and they are contributing to broader economic problems. It's not necessarily a race thing. For example, I know there are brown and black people from America doing the same thing.
Yeah, but yeah, and I'm not making it a race thing. This is more of a national thing.
No. You're talking about race and ethnicity. Stop. I already pointed out that in America, if there was severe economic harm being done from immigration, I would be more in favor of closing our southern border completely for economic reasons. I'm already clearly okay with some protectionist measures being taken for the sake of protecting an economy. Ours is much stronger than Mexico's, of course. You have been talking about ethnic and racial lines. If we're only talking about economic, yes. If we're only talking about economic business here, yes. If we're only talking
the reason
about...
I brought up Bozeman...
Keep doing
There's a reason I brought up Bozeman, Montana. There's a reason I brought up Bozeman, Montana. These are generally other wealthy white people that are moving into a town.
You just mentioned race.
Rural white people. No, literally the same goddamn race. It has nothing to do with race at that point.
Then why'd you mention race?
However, there is a culture shock, right? And there are differences there where they do not get along. In Mexico,
no, you're doing it again. I'm not talking about culture. I'm talking economics. There's a big difference between preventing
economics.
No, stop. You can't conflate things here. There's a big difference between we can't allow ultra wealthy people to buy up these apartments and drive up rent because it's causing an economic hit to the city, and we can't allow people of this culture to move in because we don't like their culture. Those are two totally different things that only a racist would mix up. Completely different things.
No, if you're to look at the rents, and for example, at Billings, Montana, I believe it was Bozeman. You can look at Boise, Idaho, Coeur d'Alene. Like you have drastic fucking increase, right? And these are people that economically it's hurting them, but at the same time, I'm not going to pretend like a lot of these people aren't culturally somewhat different because of where they come from.
I don't care about culture. I only care about the potential economic harm done to an area.
Okay, but that hurts. Okay, we both agree it economically hurts them, but
that's the only argument that I'm considering here.
Okay, but I also think there's like elitist smugness there, amongst a lot of these people that don't understand how other people live. Well, I do.
I know you do, but you have no arguments. We've been doing this for nearly an hour now, and I talked to you previously, and there were just no arguments for any of this. I will acknowledge that immigration, being an economic phenomena, if the economic outcomes are very damaging, then you can have conversations around that. But it has nothing to do with culture, race, ethnicity, nationality, blah, blah, blah. We're talking only then about the economic impact. Rent prices and inflation are an economic force, not a cultural one. So to that extent, sure, a conversation could be had. But you don't care about the economic stuff, because if you did, you wouldn't be opposed to immigration. Immigration is economically beneficial in virtually every country on Earth. There are very few countries that don't benefit from it, because generally speaking, labor is a resource that countries can take advantage of to grow their economy. So your opposition to immigration is not one that is rooted in the economy, because if it was, then you wouldn't be opposed to immigration. That's why neoliberals love immigration. They understand the economy decently well, and they tend to be in favor of it. They don't understand anything beyond the economy, but they do seem to understand that pretty well. So if we're talking about, culture and blah, blah, that's the issue that I have, right? Because that's what you care about. You care about the culture, the ethnicity, the race. So again, why should I care? You know, I want to know. You said you have racist beliefs. Why? What is it? Do we do the 1350 thing? Do we talk about Mexicans or MS-13? What is the concern? Why can every country in the world not include a diverse mix, ethnically, racially, culturally, of different peoples? What is wrong with this?
Oh, sure. I'll tell you what. So, if I wanted to have diversity everywhere, it would be like the food. No matter what mall you go to in America, you have the same restaurant with that food court.
Wait, can you repeat that? Wait,
Go,
can you repeat that? You did cut out. I just didn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
oh, sure. I said what I have against it is I would, if everybody had diversity in the world, okay, basically everywhere would become like a food court in a mall. And nearly every mall you go to, the food court is similar. There's nothing unique. It's bland. It's boring.
This is capitalism.
I definitely agree. Now, I personally think, and it's my opinion, that most people, and yes, I think capitalism is a big problem or cause of a lot of this, is most people would generally be happy to stay in the countries that they're from with the people that they, are more similar to, like, racially, ethnically, religiously. Not all, but most.
This has nothing to do with food courts.
If the material conditions allowed for it,
But
it does.
It doesn't at all. Food courts all across America.
Immigrate out of desperation.
All across America, food courts look the same, but it has nothing to do with immigration. You can go to towns that are like 99% white, and you're still going to have the Panda Express, the Taco Bell, the blah blah blah. This is an America thing, and it's because Americans are more likely to buy from a food court when there's a diversity of food there. But that's like a decision made by corporate executives or the Westfield or the people who own these malls. This isn't a product of immigration. And also, people in countries that are more ethnically or culturally homogenous love getting food from the outside when they can. It doesn't take long.
No, I get it.
Right. So
you didn't understand my point. This is the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
The last thing I would want to make the whole world is when I go to Saudi Arabia, there are black, Chinese, Mexicans, whatever, in France, same mixed from all over the world.
They're
Japan,
already there.
all over the world.
It's already there because the people in Saudi Arabia want that.
Saudi Arabia wants that?
Yes. Wait, yeah. The people in Saudi Arabia do not wake up every morning and go, yes, I am happy to only eat the food of my culture. Everywhere in the world that can afford to has restaurants that appeal to tastes all over the world. Some places have more of it than others, but go to any country on earth that has even a little bit of money. Yeah, you can go and find a Chinese place, or you can go and find sushi, as long as you're not like totally landlocked or whatever. Yeah, all over the place. That's not because of like immigration. It's not like there's a flood of immigrants into Saudi Arabia forcibly changing their culture.
The point I was, the metaphor, maybe I was poorly worded to say that. It wasn't that it's because of diversity that we have, what we have in mall food courts. It's that I don't want to see everybody become the same, where we have it's the same everywhere you go. Like,
but it's not though. That's not what's happening. All over, listen, America is a very diverse country, and the cities all over America are totally different. Los Angeles, Seattle, New Orleans, and New York are all totally different cities with massively different cultures. Even though all of us have access to Chinese food. Just the idea that everything is going to become homogenized because of immigration is the opposite of the truth. America would be homogenized if it weren't for immigration. It's because of immigration that we have so much cultural diversity in our cities. If you want to know why New Orleans is different from New York, look at the ethnicities of people who immigrated there. Los Angeles has been heavily shaped by the ethnic groups that were there. Same with Seattle. The reason these cities are different is because of all of the differences in the foundations of these cities, of these countries. Like, Look over Europe. In Europe, immigration is so free that within the EU trading zone, people can literally just walk between borders. But there's still huge differences between Spain, Germany, France, the Netherlands. All these countries have massive differences between each other. They feel different. People are happy to be able to move between them. Immigration does not make these problems worse. It makes them better. It makes our lives more rich, not only because we can travel to other places, but because we benefit from the different ideas. Our environments are shaped by different cultural continuities. It makes everything more interesting. I mean, if you want to see America without being shaped by immigrants, I don't know, fucking go to like Utah or Salt Lake City or something. There are parts of America that have been relatively untouched by immigration, and they're not exactly like meccas of cultural appreciation.
Well, begging Mormon girls is kind of. But
you can go for Mormon
anyways,
girls if you want. Okay, I'll stay the fuck away from Utah.
But I'll say that, yeah, I mean, I guess the disconnect is that, like, I think you agree, right, that when you have people that immigrate into a country that are from a different culture, they're going to contribute to that culture and they're going to help change that culture. And yes, I know you're going to say culture changes over time. It's obvious.
Well, I like cultural change.
And when it comes to, especially, the internet and social media and everything, like, we're inevitably, like K-pop. I don't even know what the fuck that, it's weird to me, but it's a big thing in America. Like, but that's because of the internet. Now, yes, I mean, we're inevitably going to have cultural change that's diverse and multicultural. I get it. Now, you mentioned something that I wanted to touch on, like California. Yes, the immigration did shape California. It's now a Democratic majority. Or basically, if you're not a Democrat, you're fucked in California.
I don't care. That's a product of democracy. The people who live in an area get to decide the political future of that area. That's democracy.
But the people that came in and were racially different from the original people,
who cares?
Replaced their vote.
Wait, they didn't replace anything.
I care.
They just moved in and added their own vote. No, they didn't replace. No, stop. Like a coward, you default to euphemisms when you know your point is insubstantial. They moved in. They became citizens. They got a vote. They participated in the process of naturalization that was laid out by our founding fathers. And when they legally had the vote, they had a vote. They didn't replace anything. The other votes of people who are descendants of the so-called founding stock of California, they're still here, assuming they haven't moved out. They can still vote. Other people have simply come in and added to their vote. I don't believe that lineage or heritage innately makes your vote any more worthwhile. There's no reason to empirically.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, they didn't. You let in that got the right to vote. Their vote matters, of course, and they have to compete with the white vote, and they vote differently on average. And amazing. So, like, my whole point is, like, why the fuck would you even take that gamble? The last thing I would want to do is
you don't seem to understand.
That will vote differently than me.
You don't seem to understand how democracy works. The logic that you're arguing for. No, you don't. The logic that you're arguing for is, if a demographic of people generally vote against me, they shouldn't be allowed to vote at all. In which case, you're not a Democrat. You're just an authoritarian. Like, your logic here is, what if we just systemically prevent the demographics that disagree with me from being allowed to engage in political participation? This is the opposite of the point of a democracy. Of course, I know you're an authoritarian because no person who believes in a democracy would believe in ethno-states, so it's not a surprise to me, but it might be a surprise to you. You're just anti-democracy. You're not anti-immigration because of its effect on democracy. You're anti-democracy and anti-immigration. You must know this about yourself, okay? Because otherwise you're going to walk around believing that you're actually defending democracy while you're contemplating how ethnically excluding people from voting would actually improve democracy. A delusion if ever there was one. Why believe such a thing? No, just understand what you are.
Oh, sure. So, so if I was to look at, let's say we said everybody from, I don't know, a lot of the Middle Eastern countries, we can just pick them I don't know, in Iraq. But I would say in particular, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, right? They can move here in mass, in large numbers. Now, I would say these are people that I would feel very uncomfortable moving here, not because of their race, but I would want to carefully screen them because these are people that are definitely against democracy and they're definitely against things that are valued and protected in the West. So,
like Republicans?
No, I mean, I think they would. Jesus Christ, dude! If you were to look at what the average Yemeni thought about casual sex, being gay, being trans, just any number of things, even how you dress.
In the United States today, the reactionary faction is the Republicans. You are not going to move me over by saying, oh, ignore the 100 million Republicans in your own country. What if too many Yemenis people came in? What a threat they would be. Funnily enough, Muslims in America actually tend to be more progressive than Christians in America.
Yes,
even though Muslims abroad tend to be more reactionary. The reason for that is because Republicans are so unabashedly racist that they kind of force non-white, non-Christian groups into progressivism by proxy. Like a lot of black people in America are socially reactionary, but Republicans are so racist that they have no choice but to vote blue. So I will never care about the reactionary foreigner because throughout America's history, it has been the reactionary Republican, the person, the white man, the domestic man. They have been the threat to progressive values in this country. And if I wanted to break democracy to get rid of them, I would ban the Republicans, not Yemenis people.
Sure, but once again, hypothetically, let's say we let in all of these people.
We already have 100 million of them. We don't need to. Well, hypothetically, what if the Yemenis... No. Right now, I'm telling you, the Republicans already tripped my flag for I basically don't think these people should be allowed to participate in democracy. We already have reached that point. I am not going to go, yes, well, hypothetically, in an entirely different world, what if the Yemenis were the threat? You know, it's not going to happen.
Okay, but I didn't get to finish. So, like, what I say, first of all, when it comes to Muslim people, I have Muslim friends. I know Muslims, stand-up people, a lot of them good people. They're my friends. They definitely are, they don't want to harm anybody. They're not bad people. In fact, I would say that in comparison to most Americans, are probably far more honest and stand up. You know, willing to protect and help others.
Can we get to the point?
This isn't.
I don't consider these debates an intellectual exercise. I think you're morally repugnant. I'm only here to discuss the ideas. I don't need the virtue signal on how, you know, well, they're actually very, well, they're all very good people. You're arguing in favor of ethno-state logic. I know, I'm sure you know many good blacks. Please tell me why you think it's acceptable to cripple a democracy by denying certain ethnic groups the right to participate in the democracy. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, sure. So the whole reason I brought them up is because if you have people that have what we would consider here a morally repugnant belief, no matter, we don't even have to use Muslims. It doesn't matter. Like, there are people that are incompatible with some fucking nation. I think you can all agree with that.
I think that Republicans are incompatible with democracy.
Well, I think Democrats are incompatible with democracy. In fact,
that's because you're retarded.
That isn't their way.
So wait, at any rate, this argument. Wait, hold on. I'm trying to save us from wasting time. This argument has been addressed. Obviously, I will not support denying ethnic groups immigration or citizenship status for what they do to the democracy, because my country is already infested with people like you. So we have to move on to another point. This one has been addressed. You can hypothetical your Yemenis immigration wave all you want. You know, they would probably be better than you.
Oh, yeah, amazing.
So the Yemenis enter California and they get discriminated against by the Republicans, then they vote Democrat.
They would throw a bisexual, I don't think you're homosexual, bisexual like you off the building and laugh and your bones were...
Really? How often does that happen here in America?
Well,
wait, you cut out. Can you repeat that?
I said it's normal in their country.
Wait, but I live here in America. Interestingly, most of the actual attacks being done against LGBT people lately have been done by Republican white people. Maybe we should be throwing them off the buildings if we're so concerned about self-defense, no? Like, why do you pretend to care about the LGBT people? Oh, keep the Yemenis away. They'll be a threat to your rights, you say as you vote Republican. You're such a coward. Why are you people all the same? You don't own your positions. You're just, oh, actually, I'm pro-ethno-state because I want to defend democracy and queer people. What the f is wrong with you? You don't believe any of those things. You probably want to throw
No,
me
no,
off a rooftop. No, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
no, I don't.
I know. No, 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 no. Underneath this abstraction, I'm sure you are deeply concerned with what you perceive to be the cultural decline through degeneracy of the United States. And these attitudes are directly linked with genocidal ones. But I always feel like I'm
No,
arguing against proxy beliefs. Like, I have to listen to you talk about how you know many, many good Muslims. And yes, so what are we here for? What argument has not yet been addressed? I do not believe you should deny certain ethnic groups immigration because of the way they will vote. It is fundamentally anti-democracy. So every point yet has been addressed. Why should I not allow immigration into my fine country?
okay, yeah, I'll address that, the immigration part. But in terms of the LGBTQ community, whatever, like, I don't believe you choose to become a fucking homosexual. There's nothing. I've never seen a dude that gets my dick hard.
I did
That's
choose.
not natural. Amazing. Now, I think that I've had a couple friends that were lesbians. And
No, you're doing it
I
again.
get it.
You're
Stop. I'm not doing it again.
you're doing
But
it
when I
again.
talk to, no, I'm not. But when I talk to them, you know, they say how no, I don't get aroused by dudes. Like, there's nothing about them I like. There's actually moderators on this server that are lesbians that talk about this. Okay, and it's just like, okay, they didn't choose to be that way. I didn't choose to be fucking straight.
Where
right?
we weren't talking
They're
about
different.
this.
But I'm not talking it. Yeah, but here's the fucking problem. I'm not for throwing people off of fucking bridges because of or buildings because of their fucking sexuality. That kind of shit is somewhat trivial to me. Gay people have always existed. So have bisexual people. We all know it. Why do we need to punish them? Is it going to get rid of them in the long term? No. Obviously, I mean, they can't. It ends up happening no matter what. Like schizophrenia, they tried to, through eugenics, they tried to annihilate them. But it's a dormant gene where a lot of schizophrenic people, most schizophrenic people never have kids. Yet schizophrenia still keeps on occurring. All right. So I don't believe on punishing people for how they're born.
Unless,
Right,
of course,
now,
they're born in a different country, in which case you would punish them by denying them citizenship so they don't vote against your racist policies.
but you say racist policies. First of all, if you're not
You've
from
literally
that
admitted
country,
to me to being racist. We don't have to argue about the
I am
abstractions
racist.
here. No,
But
I know that. So yeah, so that's crazy, dude. People participate in the immigration process, become citizens, they naturalize, and then they vote against people like you who dislike them because of their race or make policies against them. Okay, that's democracy at play. You know, this is just I'm sorry, this is literally just how it functions. Whether you're an immigrant or a newborn person born to native inhabitants of a country, you're a new person. I don't think you're any more an American being born on this soil than you are moving into this place, you know? And the democratic process
really,
should, yeah, of course. It's just a bit of ground with a border around it. Um, Either way you enter this country, like, I can't imagine how low a person would have to be to think that being born a citizen is some kind of like innate legitimizer of their identity, you know, like, unlike you immigrants, I had the decency to be born to two people who f***ed on this bit of ground. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't f***ing care. These bloviating f***s, these fat Walmart mobility scooter f***s, who die of heart problems at 42. You think you're more American?
Isn't that kind of look like you though? I mean,
No, you think you're more American because of nice coat, by the way, because like you're born into this country. There are people
that's
from
me.
Mexico who worked to get here. They worked to become an American citizen. That person is twice the American in these you know, these white picket fence, you know, like Big Mac throwing porch ethno-staters. I don't care. They are all in the eyes of the law a citizen, so they should be given the right to vote.
Yeah, except for I mean, why is it that they're so hardworking? Which obviously, I mean, if you're going to look at the immigrants, they're actually going to come through and We'll just talk about Mexicans. But of course, when it comes to people from throughout other parts of the world, their journey's far harder, right? Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're going to come to a country where you know you're not going to have much in the way of a safety net, you're going to be, in a way, it's screening for the hardest working people.
This doesn't. This also. What's
sure,
the point?
and they are harder. Well, no, the fact, yeah, they're hardworking. Do to say that makes them more American? No, they're that legally.
Sorry, your mic is cutting out every other word. I wish your microphone was more hardworking. Maybe it's not American. I don't know what you're getting at right now, but legally, if you care so much about the progeny of this fine country, you would know that the founding fathers enshrined into law the naturalization process. And thus, so whoever becomes a natural citizen, we are now given the rights of citizenship and the ability to vote. That is how it is. I think it is good that this is how it is. I don't think you have any more of a right to a place because you were born there than because you moved there. I don't think that makes any sense at all.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, does that mean I should have every bit of a right to the, the Queen's fucking palace in England? I don't get it.
So what kind of retarded deviance is this? The Queen's Palace in England? Well, first of all, I think that place should be nationalized and then distributed to the working folk. So sure, yes, as much as I should. But second of all, if you wanted to go to England and you moved into an English neighborhood, then yes, I believe you are as much a resident of that neighborhood as anyone who has lived there their whole lives. 100%. See, that's the part of living in a free country, something you claim to care about. It's that you may have the right to dictate where you live, but not where others live. And America's status as a great melting pot is kind of rooted in the idea that once you move to America and become an American citizen, you are joining the fray, entering the pot, and becoming an equal to your fellow brethren. These are fundamental Enlightenment value ideas that you simply cannot hold while also believing that an immigrant who then naturalizes is some kind of ethnic other, some lesser democratic, actor.
Oh, well, I'll say, like I said, the first Immigration Act, and then, of course, you going from 1795 to 1965 with the Hart-Celler Act, which, by the way, I believe it was Lyndon B. Johnson. He promised it would not upset the demographic makeup of America. And by the way, Mexico has a similar doctrine.
Who
when
cares?
When it comes to their immigration requirements, they do not want to upset the demographic.
Do you notice how you real question.
That is the American dream.
Do you think that anything you're about to say isn't something that I could address by waving my hand? Think for a moment. Will this be an argument I will have to fluster over, or is this something that I am once again going to go, here, I'll give you like a sort of hint to the future, okay? I don't give a what the president promised. The law is the law, and even if the law wasn't what the law says, my arguments are ethical. There are plenty of countries with legal implements that I disagree with. I concern myself only with the ethics of movement and the ethics of freedom. The law, however, just happens to agree with me on this point. So you have to move beyond ethics and beyond legalese, I think, to challenge my points on this. You just keep sort of stumbling between the few talking points that you memorize by visiting this shithole of, 4chan or whatever else you get your talking points from. It's always a couple of sites.
I don't go to...
Every 4chaner I've ever talked to has never admitted to going to 4chan, where they get all their talking points from. Maybe you go on Reddit and look at the green text there. Either way, I just don't care what the law says, ethically. I have asked you time and time again, why should immigrants not be allowed? Your answers thus far have either been empirically incorrect, or because you don't believe in democracy, in which case, I'm sorry, but... okay. I'm not convinced. I am not an ethno-stater.
Okay, well, I'm not necessarily an ethno-stater. I gave an example of why certain examples of when I think an ethno-state should be allowed. Now, of course, I have said this whole time that when it comes to rallying people and mass deportations, when it comes to putting them in camps, subjecting them to abuse, I've never advocated for that.
And when it only comes to the issues you do seem to care about, you are still unable to muster an argument. This is what I mean. I apologize if it seems as though I am rushing you, but I want to be given arguments to chew into. For this, you have none. Maybe your arguments are truly motivated by some boneheaded racism you were too embarrassed to share. Fine, if that's your prerogative, sure. But what you have shared is meaningless. That you would attempt to go, did you know that Mexico has a law that says, why the f would I care? So I should own British Parliament? Sure, fine, go for it. I don't care. I don't care about any of this. I am speaking from the perspective of human freedom. I want to give people life. I need better arguments than this.
Sure, and so I would say the freedom of association is also a freedom. And if you want to exclude people,
Stop.
that's your absolute goddamn right.
We have unveiled, right? So yes, you believe it is freedom to deny others freedom. This is nonsensical.
You're not denying them freedom.
You are literally keeping them from living somewhere.
No. You're literally okay, but you're denying the freedom to people who want to deny the freedom.
So again, we've already addressed this. We addressed this 5 minutes in.
Hey, yeah, but you literally denying their ability to.
Yes, I deny your ability to murder and rape people as well. Yes.
No.
Yes, I do. Yes, I will call the police on you if I see you raping somebody. I will.
Amazing, but you believe in the freedom to allow people to encroach on somebody else's property and or land or nation.
It's not that. Wait, property and land are things owned by the individual. The nation is not owned by any individual. That's not how it works. Also, I like you to throw property, land, and nation together as though these three things are comparable. You know, like my backpack, my toothbrush, my planet. You know, no. You have right over the things you own. Nobody owns the United States. That's actually kind of part of the whole founding documentation, you know? Unlike, say, for example, feudal states in which the entirety of the kingdom was literally owned by the monarch, in America, we're owned broadly by the people. The government owns land, and the government is ruled by the people. But the government has to abide by people's freedoms. And that's where we get back to the whole, it's not actually denying your freedom to deny you the ability to keep black people from moving in or whatever. I mean, really, do you know how pathetic this sounds? It's been going on for what, nearly an hour and a half now. You've been literally unable to provide any ethical or empirical argument for denying immigration of different ethnic groups, and now you're whining that it's taking away your freedom to deny other people their freedom? This is such a waste of time, honestly. I thought you would be more forthcoming, but it seems the true depths of your retarded racism are being kept privately to you. The first time we talked, you unironically 1350'd me, which is like I don't know what that would be. This is like the equivalent of a fish jumping out of the water to land on a pier so it can be clubbed to death. Wait, no, we're an hour and a half in. No, we're an hour and a half in. Now you want to? I've been asking you to provide real arguments this entire time, and after rolling back to, actually, you're taking away my freedom by taking away my right to deny other people freedom, now we're going to go to 1350? You know what my answer to this is, by the way. It's an unwinnable topic for you. You know that perfectly well. If you paid attention to a single moment of your sociology class, you would know that the 1350 discourse, you might as well be presenting your asshole to me. Why? Why do we talk about this?
Well, I'm sure if I showed you my asshole, you'd probably stick it in because you're gay. But like, I just want to say this.
Was that of interest to you? For me, that was just a bit of petty jousting. But did you perk up when you heard me say that? Did your ears perk?
No, I'm not hardwired.
Did your eyes?
I'm not hardwired like that.
Oh, well, interesting. You gave it more thought than I did.
No dude has ever pointed his asshole at me. That's just kind of weird. But I'm just.
You did give me that like 5-minute I can't help being straight conversation earlier. If there's anything else you would like to talk about, by the way, I would be happy to be your makeshift therapist.
Okay, yeah. I'm a gay dude. I like to suck dicks, but really, thank you. But anyways,
does it feel good to have gotten it down?
Absolutely. It feels amazing. Just like you know, what the f is his name? God damn it. Who's the black dude who turns out he was gay and grooming boys?
Jesse Lee Peterson.
Jesse Peterson? Yeah. Amazing. But anyway, so God damn it, I remember.
We both know what I have to say about the 1350 thing, right? Surely you know this is not a tenable set of arguments to go down.
Okay, so 1350. All I can say about that is that we can say it's due to their environment, it's due to genes. It doesn't matter what part of the argument you take. Okay, fine. We can say it's 100% environment, right? Now, if you as an individual, okay, if you're going to live around poor, black, urban people, generally, I should say you generally don't want to live around them for obvious reasons. due to safety. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. It just means that they're in bad circumstances. And statistically, there's a lot of problems there. Just like if I was, I mean, I want to use that analogy, but it is a reality. We can argue about the cause of what created those statistics, but those statistics are real. And I don't know, like what do you have debating about that? I don't get it.
But if your argument is that you should be safe when in bad parts of town, then sure, I completely agree with that. I grew up in Los Angeles. But the 1350 argument is the idea that there's something inherently wrong with black people as a product of the demographic consequences of their socioeconomic exclusion. Obviously, the socioeconomic exclusion exists. There are poor neighborhoods. You can find poor neighborhoods all over the world, you know. Very often it has more to do, the crime rates, I mean, with poverty and income inequality than it does, you know, race itself. In countries that are mostly monoracial, you know, you'll find that it's often sort of an ethnic disparity, but it has very little to do with the culture, more so like the access to local resources. Oftentimes, organized crime develops around, and this is where a lot of black crime comes from, organized crime, you know, gangs. It centers around the unavailability of other types of jobs. So, for example, in the Rust Belt, or in inner city areas all around the country, which used to be lively and thriving of their own right, but then kind of got hollowed out and have been turned into big empty business districts full of office buildings, where the people who live there who don't have an education no longer have like local jobs to take advantage of or to live off of. In environments like that, it's pretty common for people to take to drug trafficking or other kinds of crime in order to pay for their bills and get their nana, the medical care she needs. And then these gangs, as they always do, spiral out of control, and end up being far worse for the area than they were ever able to provide. But all that's just socioeconomics. You know, it has nothing really to do with black people. This happens to different others all around the world. Black people are just the premier other here in the United States. But the pattern is far too consistent globally for it to be just a race thing. But yes, no, I mean, that's it. It's, you know, this recognition is not a racist one. It's just a basic consequence of socioeconomic reality.
Okay, so I mean, I personally, there's some statistics that kind of like go against that when it comes to if you can control for socioeconomic status, and which would encompass, you know, your income and all of that. Like, still you have disparities in the amount of particularly violent crime people commit. But you do touch on a point that I would actually, I'm actually genuinely curious, because you're somebody much further left than I am. When it comes to the war on drugs, I personally think that I can understand how it happened. Like with the crack cocaine epidemic, you had mainly black voters that were besieged by all of the violence that they were experiencing at the hands of, particularly, you know, crack cocaine addicts, and then of course the violence between the crack cocaine dealers, and they just wanted it to stop. And so whatever it takes, just throw in prison forever, whatever. But it obviously had a huge impact on the black community. And my last point is, like, if you were to look like back the 1960s and prior, African Americans had fairly low crime rate, which would kind of go against an argument if I was to say there's something genetically different about them.
I would agree.
But I would say that I do think that the war on drugs was a bad thing, in my opinion. I guess I would like to hear your opinion on that.
No, I fully agree. Prior to so drugs were basically like broadly legal in the United States for a really long time. Up until the I mean, literally like cocaine and the Coca-Cola, like that kind of deal. It wasn't exactly difficult to get a hold of opiates or heroin or whatever, you know, their regional or temporal equivalents. And while black people tended to be very poor, they also had access to local economic opportunities. Usually those opportunities were worse than those of white people, and that did cause a lot of problems. But back in the Jim Crow eras, black neighborhoods were relatively self-contained, in the sense that, like, maybe the entire neighborhood was discriminated against, and maybe, sure, you'd be hate crimed and so on and so forth, but there was kind of a distinct economic block because white people and black people didn't trade with each other that much, or at least not compared to how they do today. Whereas nowadays, because we're much more integrated economically, you have kind of a double whammy here, which is, one, we have the ability to reduce entire neighborhoods to wastelands through the movement of labor and capital interest to other areas. You know, we can turn entire areas into effective dead zones, which didn't used to be the case. You know, the internet exacerbated this process. The rise of, like, the modern post-industrial service economy exacerbated this difference. And then you have the added problem of the drug war, which was just kind of a proxy for the Nixon administration to go after black civil rights protesters and hippies who were protesting the war. And in doing so, they created kind of like a power vacuum in a lot of these communities where there was no way for any of the black people in some of these inner city communities who had lost their jobs after the local industry dried up. They no longer really had the ability to make their ends meet. They could not get jobs. Like, there were literally just no jobs there. So, of course, you now have, like, a rise in drug trafficking as a product of it being made illegal and it being heavily restricted by the government. So it was like the only available economic opportunity. Basically, like, it was pretty much like a planned move by the government. It was pretty bad. This is why some older black people say things were better before the Civil Rights Act. Because there's kind of like as a way of compensating for the social discrimination against black people that got made illegal through the Civil Rights Act, there was a compensation for that with, like, a tuning up of types of economic discrimination. So those things kind of, like, leveled off each other at the same time, and basically racism's bad. My position.
Okay, okay, I agree with a lot of that. So, all right, so I remember making some remarks last time, something along the lines of, like, I remember talking about how, like, if you invest a lot of money into the schools and the teacher pay, it's like less than 10%. You'll see, like, less than 10% of the change in the disparities of outcomes between students from more affluent areas in comparison to, you know, the low income people. And so, like, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they kind of they caught on to this, and they ended up cutting back funding for, you know, the schools in particular, because they realized that, like, wraparound services were really needed. And I personally feel like, so despite the evil, rotten racist, I believe that poor people, whether they're black or white, doesn't matter. Because I do believe everybody should be given a chance. You have one life. Everybody should be given an equal opportunity. I believe that, like, I would be willing to spend a lot of money up front for the young in the United States that are poor, in order to really try to bridge any gap that we have. If you have a single mother who's crackheads for parents, it doesn't matter. You have wraparound services that make sure that, like, what you're doing in school is reinforced at home. And for me personally, I think that it would pay out. It's like, why would you want to spend money to imprison these people, to police these people? You'd rather have them be productive citizens that you don't have to worry about when you go out. And for me, like, and this kind of sounds like not that right wing of me. I personally, I'm for a lot of funding for people who are in positions where they can't help themselves, and that's going to be poor children. I mean, realistically, I think they need every leg up that they can get.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the problem is that you can you can, like, fill your schools with as much money as you want, but, like, black kids who live in a poor inner city area are not going to give a shit about their studies if they look around them and see that, like, literally every adult in their life is either unemployed, works at a gas station, or is, like, part of a gang, right? If they look around and see that there are basically no economic opportunities, very, very few, like the likelihood, like it's gonna massively f with people's belief that there's any worth in pursuing education. Because at the end of the day, the morale of the child is like the main thing, right? If a kid wants to sit down and learn, like that kid's gonna go far, you know? But if they're not given any reason to, if the whole like world around them is basically screaming at them, no matter what you do here, you're going to end up here, it's unlikely they're going to get anything done. And this is a systemic failure, you know. Broad neighborhood revitalization is the solution. It can't just be, you know, put money in the schools. You know, you need economic opportunity as well. You need to you need to like make it evident that there is a consequence to good performance at school, that it will lead to something, that it's not totally meaningless. Like I grew up in Beverly Hills, and the people who did well in school, a lot of them did well in large part because they well knew that they had the opportunity for good jobs in the future if they did, because they went to Beverly Hills High, and probably because their parents were rich or they knew people who were rich. Um, so yeah, it's just it's important to give them that trajectory, I think.
Can I ask you a hypothetical? This is something that I've had this conversation server, and it it was with mainly liberals, but a lot of people that were further left leaning, especially economically, kind of agree with it. But if we were to talk about like how we help Black people, if I was a fascist leader of the United States of America, this is going to sound extremely harsh, and it's not something I take lightly. But I see people that are the product of, we can say, like, for example, Black boys and men that are 16 to 30 years old or whatever. If I wanted to create an environment that was extremely conducive to being successful for young Black poor children, part of it would be I make all of the criminals disappear throughout their lives, which would mandate really harsh sentencing.
But you're falling into the trap, though. This is the mistake that people made, right? Because those criminals you're referring to, they're the ones who bring in the money that allow them to afford breakfast before school. They're one of the reasons so many people in these neighborhoods join gangs is because that is literally the only economic opportunity available. Like, it doesn't take much driving through some of these neighborhoods to realize, like, there's nothing there. So in reality, all you would do is exacerbate those conditions. You can disappear the criminals or whatever, but in doing so, you would only exacerbate the material conditions that cause criminality. The only real thing you can do is give people a better opportunity than joining a gang, in order for them to, like, be able to pay their bills and buy groceries after school and stuff.
Well, yes, and that's how the debate continues. And so I guess what I'm asking is, how do you think that with African Americans, now we have to understand that how they were treated in the past, their environment, everything, how they grew up, what we're dealing with. Okay, we can't change what happened in the past. How do we make the United States of America better for these poor urban Black children? And the reason I'm pointing towards children is because, especially their most malleable years are going to be when they're extremely young, but especially up until through their adolescence until adulthood. So I wouldn't want them to be maladapted to a civil society like you would see most Americans in the United States.
A public works program. The problem is money isn't enough because it's not enough to build. Things need to be built by these communities. I think the best thing that you could do is have a multi-tiered public works programs in certain districts of the United States. You could do it on a city by city or county by county level, maybe even a neighborhood level if you needed to, where the government gave provisional money to essentially employ local people to do work at every level. You could have kids who would be getting some pay after school to like clean up an area of the neighborhood. You would have adults who are getting pay to work with government contractors to like do actual construction work, whether it be demolition of derelict buildings, of which there are plenty in these neighborhoods, or basic kinds of reconstruction, or like clearing out areas for a park. Basically, the goal would be like It's not just enough to give money. Like, use the money to build a framework that you can use to revitalize these neighborhoods. And as soon as you have these neighborhoods revitalized, you're going to do a couple of things. It'll be prettier, which will raise property values for the people who already own homes there. It will be easier for new like business interests to move in because there will be more money in the hands of the people who work there. All that stuff, and this over a long enough period of time, like I think a couple of generations, I think you could go a really long way to fix these problems. But if something like that were implemented, it would have to be like a real fucking investment, you know, which we could do. I think with a couple million, you could do like quite a bit to revitalize some inner city neighborhoods. Like there are parts of LA that just a couple million put in the right places would go a huge distance. But like a couple million is not a lot for like LA city budget stuff, you know? But it needs to go farther than that. For county by county stuff, some of these counties are dirt poor. You need the federal government to step in, or at least the state government could step in with the federal government giving them provisions. With stuff like that, with a new deal, like a kind of broader public works program for everyone, I think we could go a long way towards addressing these problems. And I think it would make people care more too. I think it's easier to care about your neighborhood when you physically helped rebuild it. And you have to care about your neighborhood to treat it well. People in Beverly Hills and West Hollywood treat their neighborhoods well because it's a nice neighborhood. People who pay high property taxes go outside and they don't litter a bunch because they pay high property taxes. They're invested in their neighborhood. But people who are dirt poor, who know the government hates them, who know the police hate them, like, of course they're not going to give a shit if their neighborhood's run down. Because if they cleaned it, it wouldn't make a difference. Nothing matters. Nothing means anything there. So I think that's what you need to do. You gotta set in motion the tools for self-revitalization. Sorry for rambling. That's what I think could be best.
And I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I agree with most of what you said. I guess, by the way, like when it comes to the cops, you know what, you guys are here to protect and serve. You guys, you can't abuse your power. And it's a whole different topic. But one of the biggest problems I see, and when it comes to a lot of these liberal cities, okay, I'm not going to say that conservatives wouldn't do the same shit if they live in the same area, by the way, but it's like the NIMBYists in their goddamn zoning law and how they speak out of one side of their mouth, yet they really don't do anything that can help the middle class or the poor. And I personally don't know how you can get rid of that problem.
Yeah, I think we just have to muscle them, like, politically. The fucked up thing is that, like, most people don't know that much about, like, local city and state laws when it comes to property taxes. So they're pretty easy to manipulate, and there's a huge amount of money that goes into protecting the NIMBYs. For example, in California, there was recently a law that that was passed, and it was done, I think, by like a referendum on the state, like it was one of their propositions, you know. And what it did, the vote made it so that homeowners didn't have to like refinance to determine the new property tax they should pay, which is fucked up because like in San Francisco, if you bought a house in the 1970s, you're paying like $1 a month in property taxes. But right now, with the current value of real estate in San Francisco or basically any of the coastal Californian cities, their properties are worth multiple millions of dollars, and they're just sitting on this like insane wealth, not paying taxes on it, which is especially fucked up because all of our school districts are paid via property taxes, which means that you have like this essentially this untaxed wealth being hoarded by these boomers who got lucky and got the wealth earlier, you know. Which is one of the rare examples that I would provide of this being kind of like a government interference in market principles that is actually harming our society. The free market should be given a little bit more leeway here. Those properties should be taxed at their actual value rather than allowing the state to set their, you know, their tax value at some like 50-year antiquated level. You know, like the market isn't functioning properly here. Needs to be kicked back into action, I think.
No, I agree. I mean, it's yeah, I don't know.
I'm sorry for shouting at you earlier.
No, it's cool. I think you're a cool guy. Like, we got in a heated debate, but like, I think you're a cool guy. I mean, personally, like, I mean, you know, whatever. It's politics. I'm a nobody for somebody. And you know, I just do this shit on, you know, in my free time. Cool.
Yeah, it's gotten a little bit beyond a hobby for me. I don't want to curtail things entirely. I think an hour 40 is a good amount though, because somebody else wants to yell at me too. That Zionist guy. And I need to make sure I have time after that conversation to blow my brains out.
All right.
Yeah, I think I need to to switch gears. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, you too. Good night, Ben.
Have a wonderful day.
Cool. Thank you, Pepe. Zionist, if you're ready, I'll pull you right in, okay?
Okay, so this is on the condition that his microphone sounds okay, because one of the reasons I was shouting
Okay.
before is because his mic was super choppy. But if it sounds fine, then I'm fine, and if not, then I'll say a bunch of slurs and leave, I guess.
He's a Zionist, so you should shout at him either way.
That's probably true. Hold on, I need to use the restroom real quick. You can bring him on
Go
and
for it.
have him corrupt my audience with his Zionist logic. Hold on.
Hello. Hi. Is this
Hi,
is this good?
Zionist.
The mic good?
You sound good to me right now.
All right, cool. Once Vaush comes back, let's do that. So, last time I really wanted to kind of spend more time laying down the foundation as to why I support the state of Israel, but this conversation between you and Pepe has kind of piqued my interest. Pepe, I'm sorry, dude. This is like so slow. You're so just say it, dude. You just want to see white people, man. White people look good. You want to see that? Look around, white people. That's what you want. Just say that. Why do you gotta be like black people so good and the Jewish people so good too? Just say you like white people. God damn it.
All right, I'm here.
Okay, welcome back.
Are there any
Sorry,
slurs for Palestinian people that were said?
Not yet, actually.
Oh
Oh,
wait, wait.
okay.
I'll be right back. I'll be.
What? He spent the time you were away insulting Pepe, which is really funny.
Gotcha. Wait, I'm kind of talking to my chat. 1 second.
Yeah,
Chat, how cheap do you think you could do one of those like neighborhood revitalization things? I think because I feel like if you have a neighborhood, which you think of maybe like four primary schools, 2 secondary schools, or whatever. Like I'm thinking that for just a couple $100,000, you could actually lay the groundwork for like, I don't know, man. I feel like that could be really cool. Yeah, it would, like, I guess the problem is like government corruption is always gonna like f this up, right? I feel like you need to create a whole new department locally so that you don't have like a bunch of dipshits like grabbing at every cent they can on the way over. I don't know. It'd have to be done pretty lean. You need a couple mil. I mean, a couple million to like completely revitalize a neighborhood, depending on the size of that neighborhood, could be totally worth it. I mean, a single house near the coast could be a couple million. You know? Like, think of how much more a neighborhood becomes worth after gentrification. Like, it's not just a couple $100,000. Like, if depending on the size of the neighborhood, you could be talking like $10-20 million in terms of like property and economic value. So yeah, I don't know. The goal would be essentially to do gentrification, but without the gentrifying. So like the original inhabitants of the neighborhood, like you wouldn't like price a bunch of people out via renting or whatever, you know?
All right, I'm back. I'm sorry. I had to do something.
Howdy.
Welcome back. I'll hop out and leave you to it.
All right. I just needed to check my front door. I thought it was like a dirty Palestinian or a Hamas terrorist.
All right, are we gonna? Okay.
Wait, hold on.
One of my
hold on.
central criticisms the first time is that you're just like a
Wait,
collection of
wait,
memes with no
wait,
real
wait,
convictions.
hold on,
Let's
hold
do the actual,
on.
like, all right.
I'm not gonna do. Yeah, don't worry.
Mm-hmm,
I'm just gonna get down to the brass tacks, the meat and the potato. Okay.
mm-hmm.
But just working on what Pepe was saying before, right? Because it was like infuriating me. I didn't even know what Pepe was talking about. But here's a reason as to why you wouldn't want immigrants in the country: national security reason. Why the would I want people that are not of the same custom, culture, doesn't have like the same national interest, doesn't care about our history or
I'm
whatever?
sorry. Are you
just
Jewish?
come into our country and be like, hey, hi, yeah, I'm here for the job.
Hold on, wait. Hold on. He's already being insufferable. We're already bloviating. No.
There's like a World War III. I'm gonna get the out of here.
Okay,
right?
hold on. Really quick.
Don't understand.
Wait, really quick. Are you Jewish?
I'm ethnically quarter Jewish.
Okay, are you seriously going to make the argument for ethnic exclusion based on people in government fearing that a given ethnic group is of a national security concern because they're shiftless and they don't have the interest of the country at heart? Are you really going to make that argument? Because I'm pretty sure people believing that is why Israel had to be created in the first place.
I'm going to make the argument that there are certain people that are, they have self-interest in protecting um, their own lives and their own families, right? And they just happen to be of the same skin tone. Sometimes they
Yeah,
happen to
Hans. I
be
agree completely, Hans.
of
This
the
is I agree with your
no,
plan, your answer to the question.
all right, dude. I'm just making Pepe's argument because Pepe was like taking so long, and he was talking
No,
about
no,
something.
Pepe was significantly less retarded than you are. You're
Okay,
making a
that's fine.
worse version of
This
the
is
argument.
anti-Semitism, by the way. I'm gonna call you out every time you do
Sure,
that. That's
whatever. I mean, it is always been sort of a
anti-Semitic.
perpetual irony to me that when
That's anti-Semitic.
Israelis try to defend Zionism, they essentially just recite like Mein Kampf to me, except with some of the nouns changed.
But it's not.
So
Dude, if the Palestinians want, they could go to Jordan. They could be like the Syrians, like the pussy ass Syrians.
you
Be like, oh,
realize Hitler
Europe,
tried to have the
we're
Jews
gonna go to
deported
Europe
before
and
the Holocaust happened,
because
right?
there's a war going on and we can't fight this
So
civil
wait,
war.
first of all, no, they
West,
can't.
we're
You
gonna go
can.
to Europe and steal all these
So
jobs and rape the
hold on,
women.
wait. My willingness to debate this guy is going to be predicated entirely on whether or not he can stop bloviating and actually fucking talk. I understand that like you're very like
Ouch,
lacking in confidence about this
ouch,
conversation, but when you're like
ouch,
reciting
ouch.
20 to
Calm
30
down,
second long bits.
calm down, calm down.
Oh
Listen,
God, he's
what,
insufferable.
what what I wanted to address was that the state of Israel was inherited by
Wait,
the
you
British.
already gave me something to address. Are you running away from that because you realized it was a stupid position, or are you moving to a new
Well,
one?
yeah, you could address it whatever you want. You
Oh,
could
then
address
let's
what.
okay, then let's work on that then. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, no, the Palestinians cannot move wherever they want. I can't believe you would say that. What an unfathomably stupid thing to say.
You
Second of
seem to
all,
be for the
stop. I know you have like a
Palestinians going to
quip, but
America
it's not
or
relevant
Europe.
to the
Why
conversation.
are they going to stay in Palestine this time, huh?
Wait, can he hear me when he talks, or does he have a phone mic? Wait, are you on your phone?
No, I can hear you.
Okay.
Just-
This is gonna take oh God, this is gonna take longer than with the last guy. Okay. First of all, Palestinians cannot move wherever they want. Second of all, if your argument is if they don't want to be subject to ethnic oppression, they can just move, was literally the argument that Hitler made. That's not a joke.
Palestinians move around.
He
Do
tried
they not
to
have legs?
he tried to have the Jews sort of deported before the Holocaust like fully
Why are you
wound up
talking
into
about
gear.
Germans? Why are you talking about Nazi Germany? Talk about Israel and Palestine. It's
Well,
so weird.
I thought you were talking about Nazi Germany.
Okay, you want me to talk about China? Like, okay,
Why are we talking
don't
about
you,
China?
what? I don't know. Why are you talking
Do we
about
want to
Germany?
talk about another country that's doing an ethnic cleansing? Why are we keep? We're just talking about ethnic cleansings, bro. We can talk about Germany. We can talk about China. You know, we can talk about Turkey with the Armenian genocide. What do you want to compare your crimes to?
Oh, the Germans and the Holocaust. Like, stick to the topic, bro. What's going on?
All right. So far, we're 1-0 for me. Addressed your point. What's the next
Okay,
one?
fine. Whatever makes you sleep at night, dude. If you jerk off to the fact that you've beaten the Zionists,
This guy doesn't actually believe in anything here. He probably doesn't know shit about Israel. This is just like an internet meme fest for him.
Please, dude.
This guy's opinion on
use
Israel is
my
literally like the Giga Chad image
Jewish
with the
mind.
Israeli flag
Use
behind
my
it. That's it.
kosher body for your pornographic satisfaction.
He's doing it again.
But listen, Vaush. What?
Doobie, are you there?
It's just free flow. It's free flow.
Doobie, Doobie, my friend. You have to make him actually talk rather than jerk off to the sound of his own
Zionist,
voice.
Zionist, I love you, but maybe like take the memes down like 5 notches.
Like yeah,
actually
maybe
have an
like
argument.
7 to 8. Like we can actually talk about this, but I know for a fact this guy's only understanding of Israel. He doesn't know about its politics, its history, anything. The one thing that he knows is the Giga Chad with the Israeli flag behind it, and all of his politics are just that, and all of it can be fit into the like impact font Pepe memes that he got his politics from. We can like listen to you recite them. If you want to talk about any of this shit, like I can go over it if you want. Like, do you want to actually talk about why this stuff is bad?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, so do you believe in democracy? Like first, like I know you're a fascist, but let's see what you think you believe. Do you believe democracy is good?
I believe in democracy, yeah.
Okay, and do you believe it's bad to persecute people for their ethnicity?
I believe in a republic. Because that's the United States, the constitutional republic.
Okay, so you're a fascist. The only people who think that republics and democracies are mutually exclusive are people who don't believe in democracy. Okay, gotcha.
Was the United States not founded on a constitutional republic?
A democratic republic. They're not exclusive at all. Like a republic and a democracy refer to government organization
I'm not
and
a
the means.
sociologist. I wouldn't know.
Okay, then they're not mutually exclusive at all.
I was always told that it was a constitutional republic.
Yeah.
And the whole point of like a constitutional republic was if there was like a minority of people, we would defend those people's rights over the majority or something.
Well, that's just democratic rule of the majority with protections for the minority. A republic refers to the way in which the government is organized. A democracy determines who leads that government. The minority protections you're referring to, which funny, an Israeli would bring that up, okay, but you know, yeah, also a good thing. I agree. So, let's begin, okay? The year is 1967. A year known by the Palestinians and also Wikipedia as the Palestinian Exodus. The flight of around 1/3 Palestinians out of the territories captured by Israel during and in the aftermath of the Six-Day War, including the demolition of the Palestinian villages of, and then it goes on to list like a bunch of villages. It goes on for a while because a lot of bad things happened. So this was known historically as the Big Meme. You know, not the first Palestinian Exodus.
Why do you have to start from 1967? Why not 1948?
We can go back to 1948 with the other exodus of Palestinians if you want, but most people start with 1967 because it sort of delineates the beginning of the modern pattern of Israeli land grabs, where
we bought it legal. We bought those land legally. It was only after the Arabs decided like we want the Jews out and attack.
So the
we just
1/3 Palestinians who fled the territories, you purchased it from them? Did they flee because they were just so happy with the deal they got on their land?
I know that in previously before 1940, before the state of Israel was established, there were Jews that were just slowly but surely legally buying property in the Mandate of Palestine at the time. And then when the state of Israel was formed, you know, you got all these eclectic Jewish people like, oh, hey, we got all this land, right? Let's put them all together. And oh, what a coincidence! It's also in the UN resolution where it divides Israel and Palestine.
So this
is
a small,
nice little Jewish settlement.
So this is already not. So this is already not true.
Those Jews over there.
So this is already not true. There were territories that were purchased by Israelis, but the displacement we're referring to does not refer to the single purchasing of properties. What has historically happened is that the Israelis have used either small legal deals or conflict as a pretext for annexing territory and causing Palestinians to flee that territory.
That's what we've been doing for like the past 1,000 years. Why is it like bad now?
You're right. It is bad. Well, wait, it was bad then too. I don't know. Okay. We've been doing ethnic cleansing for thousands of years. Why, like, when you say stuff like that, it makes me think that you don't actually believe in any of this shit. Like, obviously we've done unethical stuff for a long time. I'm against lots of ethnic cleansings happening all over the world. I've been publicly against ones that have happened in every continent on Earth. I don't know why you'd think like, well, other people do it. Yeah, it's bad when they do it too.
Then talk about those people. Why are you going to talk about the Jews, man?
Is this seriously the quality of argument? I do. I did a whole thing, including multiple research streams and debates on the purging of the Xinjiang province of the Uyghur Muslim people. Right now, the Armenians, who have previously been genocided by the Turks, are now being attacked by the Azeris, by Azerbaijan. I've talked about Rwanda. I've talked about the killing of white people in Haiti after the slave revolt. Huh?
To those Native Americans.
I'm sorry?
Remember, wait, can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, you remember what happened to the Native Americans?
Yeah, it wasn't great.
The Trails of Tears, man. It was not good, and I would consider that. So I'm wondering, like, okay, so I understand that you don't like the Israelis doing the land grab, us taking the W's and winning all the fucking time.
No, see, like again, wait, no.
Why?
So wait, no, come on, no, stop, stop, no, stop. Why do we keep with these pathetic meme arguments? Okay, it sounds cool when you're putting them in the Pepe like meme image format. Over voice, it comes across as pathetic. You know, funnily enough, the ethnic group that I've talked about the genocide of most is the Jewish people. I've argued with a lot of Nazis who have denied the Holocaust, and I've talked extensively about anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish hate crimes here in the United States. I'm pretty broadly opposed to ethnic bias in general, especially when it's being conducted by a state, because there's a multiplying factor on the force with which they can use, their power against that ethnic group. So when you ask me, well, no, wait, last thing I'll say, then I'll hand it to you. So when you're like, ethnic cleansings have happened for ages. Why is it bad when we do it? Oh, why not talk when other people do it? Oh, you do talk when other people do it? Okay, okay, we've talked about our W's. Like, do you care about any of this stuff? Come on, this demonstrates a tremendous lack of conviction on your part.
Wait, hold on. So, shit, I was gonna say something. Wait, hold on. Fuck. I had a good point, but fuck, I lost it. All right, let's just go back to like, all right. So, you're an American? Oh wait, no, I remember. Right. So it seems like,
We probably both are.
wait, hold on. I have the point. It seems like you seem like the type of person that, yeah, you don't see ethnicity as like a category to kind of discriminate, right? Um,
That
and
would
you
be
see,
correct.
and you see everybody as like everybody's pink and stinky on the inside, kind of like a Christian, right? It's like everybody, we're all God's children, we're all brothers and sisters.
I'm not
But
religious.
here's the thing about um there are some people that doesn't agree with it, right? There are many people with huge political powers, military powers, right? And this is including Russians, Chinese, the Japanese, even the Koreans that will prioritize their ethnic group over anyone else, right? They will prioritize making sure their in group is protected,
I just
right?
talked about how I oppose ethnic exclusion all over the world. Obviously, I know that people engage in it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be anything for me to oppose. I'm talking to a person
Right,
who believes that ethnic exclusion is acceptable.
right. So, unfortunately, as listen, I wish we could live in a world where we don't have to kill each other and it was all peaceful and everybody was kumbaya, shaking hands and whatever, right?
Just please get
But
to the actual point.
right,
Obviously, I
but
know there are people who are racist or ethnically
but
exclusionary.
but right. So there are some terrible people, and you would include me in that category, that believes that a certain type of people belong on a certain type of land, and these people, regardless of whether it's their ethnic or national or culture or religious or whatever, are going to fight and die for that land, right? And now, from your perspective, you come in here with your Harvard degree in sociology, and you're like, well, everybody is pink and stinky on the inside.
Is this
We're all
really,
brothers
come
and
on,
sisters.
wait,
Wait,
no,
no,
a real
wait,
argument if you would.
listen to me. Listen to me. I'm trying
Doobie,
to make.
how many minutes of not making a point do I have to endure?
Wait,
Man,
wait. So, Vaush, you're okay with talking to stuttering Pepe for the last 1 hour and 40 minutes? I'm getting bored because I guess you like punching down on him, right?
if
And
you wait, if you first of all, I
when I'm
may
actually trying to make some point, right?
first of
I don't
all,
know.
Pepe
I don't know why
made points more
you're
directly than you, and second of all,
okay.
you're not in a position to condescend to him, trust me. If you want to make the point, yes, obviously I know there are people who are ethnically
Well,
exclusionary,
I,
okay? Yes,
listen,
fine. So what
I
is the
love
point?
Pepe. Pepe understands.
Okay, so as a neutral third party observer, I'm gonna be totally honest. Zionist, like so far, the only like semi argument I've been able to get out of you that I've been able to catch is, hey, maybe we're genociding the Palestinians, but why do you got to talk about it? Like that's
Well, no, I was gonna
like
make the.
you got
I
to
was
go
gonna,
deeper than that. I'm
wait,
Well, I
sorry.
so
think right
I
now
was
he's buying time because he doesn't
No,
actually
no,
have any
I'm not.
ethical positions to
Wait,
defend.
hold on, hold on. I'm trying to make the point here.
If I talk longer, you'll
I,
have more
wait,
time to buy time, though, so it's actually in
Bounce.
your
Here's the point.
interest.
Here's the point. Well, Might is right. At the end of the day, regardless of what you feel, how you feel, whatever people feels, right? Might is right. And I know where you're gonna go with this. I know you're gonna be like, oh, so if they won during 1940s, then the Jews will be eliminated.
You're
Yes.
right, I am going to go there.
No, well, yeah, I knew you were gonna go for that because you're predictable, right? But
Oh,
wait.
you're setting me up pretty well, you know. You can't
At the
present your asshole to me and then call me predictable when I kick it.
okay, yeah, yes, you're sexy, you're beautiful. I think you're very handsome, whatever, right? Um, at the end of the day, right? Who dictates policy and what goes and what stays, right? Is the people that are the victors of war, right? And it just so happens to be that Israel is in a position, be it politically, military, economically, that they have gotten that area by whatever means necessary and maintained that, right?
I'm
And
gonna take like 3 minutes before I can respond to this.
here comes a bunch of Palestinians, right, that went through this. Which,
Who
by the way,
arrived after the Israelis did.
they enacted the war first, right?
Uh-huh.
These people declare war on the Jewish people first, right? And not because they're in the losing side of the war, right? They have no military infrastructure. The only bare bones military infrastructure is just like you said, Hamas and a bunch of kids throwing rocks, right? Now they're coping in seed. Now they're doing the boo hoo, we're the victims of war, please. When they were the ones that decided to attack Israel,
Doobie, how
they're
many
the
more
ones
minutes?
that are supporting terrorism.
It's
The
up to
ones
you
that
at this
are
point.
Okay,
attacking Israel.
he doesn't, I don't know if he can hear me when I'm talking though. Okay, so so at first we got ethnic cleansings happen all the time, and then we got well, why don't you talk about the other ones? And now we have, well, actually it's fine if we do it because we can do it. There's not a real argument here. Obviously, this is literally an argument a person could make to justify the Holocaust, and he would complain against that. He doesn't actually believe might makes right. He just believes pro-Israel. There's no real ethical position here, and therefore no argument. No, stop. And therefore no argument to actually debunk. Anybody who sincerely believes that might makes right can be like, this is not actually an ethical position anyone believes. Frankly, the Nazis didn't believe it either, because when the Nazis started losing to the Americans and the Russians, you know what they didn't say? They didn't say, well, they're stronger than us, so actually it's morally right for them to do this. No, it's a retarded non-position that ethically... Wait, stop. You talked for so long. Like, the problem is you don't actually have an argument or a position. You're weak intellectually. You don't... Wait, stop. No, stop. You talked for so long, and I know you can't stand this, because with half the words I say twice as much as you, but that's just a technique you're going to have to learn, okay?
That's not my point.
You don't have a real position. The fact that you would unironically try to defend Israel of all countries on might makes right, when it has taken the constant intervention of the West to use you as our military base for you to survive the antagonism of your neighbors, you are the example of a kid who loses an argument, tries to beat up their neighbors, and then your dad walks out and beats them up for you, and then you brag about it. It's so pathetic. Like, you realize the frustrating thing too is that, like, if you actually were a real Zionist, which you're not, you would be able to argue, I think you'd be wrong, of course, but you'd be able to make a rich series of arguments pertaining to your culture, economic attainment. You'd know the specifics of the policies within Palestine, but I don't think you know any of these things. I think that you just adopt the pro-Israel position because you're edgy, and because you, like many infantile-minded people on the server, define yourself through the hyperbolic positions you'll defend with images of GigaChat. You've offered me nothing, so I have nothing to say in return.
Okay. So,
I would rather provide therapy for you than argue with you on this point.
Sure, fine. You can provide therapy. I'm a little loose.
Okay, when did you first gain access to the internet?
So when I said might is right,
this is not an answer to my question. No, you don't understand. I simply don't care about this argument with you anymore.
Okay, I don't, this is therapy. I'm trying to tell you.
No, I asked you when you got access to the internet. I know you're not a kid because your voice doesn't sound that young.
I thought we were going to, I'm 21.
Okay.
I thought we were going to talk about Israel and Palestine.
You're wrong. We're done talking about that now. You have unveiled the depth of your disinterest in the subject. No, we're talking about you now. We're talking about you now. Zionist Jules, do you not want to talk about you now?
Israel is here to stay, and they benefit the United States a lot more than Palestine.
He doesn't want to talk about him. Doobie, I'm done with this conversation. He's running away from the argument.
All right, bye-bye.
Zionist sounds like it's over, Mr.
Yeah, bye, Vaush.
Thank you, Zionist. Vaush, thank you for I'm gonna be real, for humiliating two of the right-wing children.
No, I actually respect the Pepe. Obviously, I disagree significantly, and I think that a lot of his racism is euphemized so that he can avoid talking about it. But it's impossible for me to describe how little respect I have for the second person, you know? They don't actually believe in anything, and a lot of people in the server who are, like, kind of, let's be fair, like 14 years old, aren't going to understand that because they don't have real beliefs themselves. They're not old enough to. But when you really believe something, there's a degree of emotional investment you give it, a commitment to the argument. A real Zionist, and I have talked to real Zionists, actually care about the state of Israel. Like, they have an emotional investment in the longevity of that nation state. But he doesn't have that. What he has instead is, it's like snowball fights, except on the internet. Like, you choose your fort, and then you just defend it as hyperbolically as possible. A lot of people, like the infrared crowd is like this. A lot of people think this is politics, but it's not. It has all the political involvement of choosing a sports team and then deciding that you despise people who have chosen the other sports team. And I just get very tired of those conversations because they don't believe what they're saying. So why? Because I believe what I'm saying. Why should I denigrate my arguments by bringing them to that level?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. Go for it.
Oh, no. I just want to say that I do think it's particularly funny that a lot of the people who I see in the audience chat who were defending the Zionist guy were far right. It's sort of an interesting, because I know a lot of the people doing so are themselves anti-Semitic, which it's just sort of, there's a sort of a funny political interplay there, where there are a lot of Nazis who hate the Jews but love Israel because they know that it's like a racist ethno-state and they think that's something worth emulating. Anyway, it's not great.
Yeah, if Israel's stopping an ethno-state, they'd stop being able to point at it, whenever the topic comes up.
Yeah,
right? And it's easy fodder for brain dead Republican types that support Israel for no reason.
They just want to do Israel, but more white.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, it's been a tremendous fun, even for the quick one-offs. You have a good day, okay?
Thank you, you too. You have a good night.
Bye. Woo! All right. Those were both very basic bitch entry-level convos, TBH. No. The first convo was fine. The second guy, there's like no worth to those people at all. Again, literally, it's just like they see memes online and they form their political opinions around that. I could tell that he was just trying to buy time for the later bit too, when he was like, listen, sometimes people believe in things, right? And the things are different. And the best he could come up with after all of that was might makes right. Phenomenal stuff. Do you think it's possible to get through to guys like that? No. John, you have been insane. Okay, hold on, John, just a second. No, I don't really think so. Remember how I said that I think tankies are harder to get through than Nazis? I think this is the reason why. A lot of the Nazis that I've talked to actually believe in what they say, and a lot of the tankies that I've talked to don't. They don't actually believe anything that they say. It's just like empty jingoism that they know is untrue, that they promote because that's all politics is to them. So that it kind of fits in that like line of behavior, I think. While you were gone at the start, he was shit-talking Pepe for tiptoeing and being slow. Well, the funny thing is, if you look in the politics server whenever I talk, the common like tendency there is like a bunch of people will be seething and coping and calling like the guy who's talking to me retarded, but that happens every time. I see the 4chan threads after I do debates with Nazis. I've debated like dozens of them, and every time they're like, "Grr, this representative of our views is retarded. I would do better." But they wouldn't. They would all be the retard. They're just not self-aware enough to realize that their ideology is that bad, like they always imagine that there's some like hypothetical good advocate for their position who would come up, and that guy lacked the same self-awareness, like he saw Pepe talking, he was like, well, I'll be much better, but he ended up being worse, because Pepe actually did have beliefs, even if I disagreed with them and thought they were dumb, and he doesn't. It's almost always better to believe something than nothing, no matter how bad the nothing is. At least you can actually talk about it. Okay, wow, John, you sure have been giving me f***ing money, dude. Holy shit. John, with the $50, stop debating these fools for f***'s sake. And then another $50 says, another $50, please make it stop. And then an additional $50 saying, Vaush, please. And then another $5 saying, at Glumplum, there is only one John. And then another $20 saying, praise Allah. And then finally, $100 donation for God so loved the world, he sent his only, and that's it. And then $200 with John Mathers. Is this the same John or a different John? Are these, but the other, the first John said there's only one John, so these must be two different Johns who are just deciding to give me an obscene amount of money for some reason. John Mathers says Yahweh and the Gods and Goddesses of Canaan by John Day. True, I completely agree, unless what you're saying, unless this is an anti-Semitic book, in which case I don't agree. Library of Hebrew Bible, Old Testament. It looks complicated. I have no knowledge on this. Okay. Even Swenson with the $100 dono with no message attached whatsoever. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm supposed to say here, to be honest. Thank you guys so much. Is this the big politics server? Cabal? paying out to me to make sure that I go on there more often. I knew the CIA hype train would work. John, what are you doing? What are any of you guys doing? Okay, thank you all so much for the incredibly kind donations. I have no idea what kind of brain damage motivated you to that kindness, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Thank you. Jesus. If this is some effort to like back pay my PayPal account, it's ill-fated because you can't do that through YouTube super chats. I don't know, it's just really nice. Thank you guys. They're all my employees. Yeah, thank you, Sake Tanuki, for sending them out.